So hi everybody. Good to see everyone here after yet another snowfall on the island. So we're doing yet another snowfall scene here. And this is going to be done with basically one color, one of my favorite colors, which is Moon Glow. I love that color because it breaks into other colors. And what a big part of this is going to be about building those darks with one color. Maybe we'll add a second or third, but right now I'm just sticking with Moon Glow. Have your masking fluid ready, your toothbrush ready, and a piece of a sponge, natural sponge ready. And whenever I use masking fluid, I always have an extra little container of water so that I'm not using the same water that I'm using for my brushes because it could get gunky. Okay, so I'm going to switch cameras. And as you guys know, I have two cameras. I have one close and one's closer, and the other one's a little further. So I'll switch back and forth between those two for you. If you want to see it a little closer, just let me know, and I'm happy to make it closer. I don't mind doing that at all. And so the first thing I want to do, since there's obviously, this moire pattern going on, that's what happens when you have a pattern dots on the screen. I took this from the TV. So the screen has dots and then my camera has dots. So a moire pattern is what's created there. That's why that's there. We're just going to ignore that. And of course, you got my drawing that I sent you, my contoured drawing, which is a whole lot of nothing, but it's just enough to guide us. And the first thing I want to do is take my toothbrush and I want to just splatter some of the masking fluid onto our page here. Now, just so that I don't get it all over my fingers, I use one of these little, finger things. Oh, that one broke. Just to kind of keep my finger, it gets into my nail and everything. So it's just one of these little things that you could just roll over your finger. And if you don't have it, just make sure you take your masking fluid off fast. I use this for gardening actually, but I think accountants use that. Okay, I'm going to take my toothbrush. I'm tilting my masking fluid a little bit so that now my toothbrush has got enough speckles on it. And I'm just going to speckle my page sort of arbitrarily, but just, and put down as much as you really kind of want to. It doesn't, it's sort of up to you how much you want to put down. That looks like, I'll go a little closer. That looks like a good amount to me. And we just want to make sure that that dries. If you have to go back in and get a little bit more, if you get big blobs, I love them because they look like they're very close to the camera. So if you happen to get a nice big blob, that's okay. We're sort of done with our toothbrush, so I'm just going to stick it in my water and let it just see, it gets kind of murky as soon as you do that. And you just don't want that murkiness on your brushes at all. That's why I always keep that sort of separate. And that is the extent of the masking fluid. That's all I'm going to do. The rest we're going to do sort of with one color. Mostly one color, I'm thinking. And be sure to close up your masking fluid because I've spilt it all over my nice black pants. My pants turned very painterly. And it definitely, well, they made them very interesting. So that was kind of fun that I had these interesting pants with all this big splatter on it. And when I store my masking, I store it upside down because what you don't want to do is shake it and then use it because what happens is it creates air bubbles. So I just store it upside down so everything doesn't settle on the bottom. And the brand that I like is this PBO drawing gum. Okay, that's the brand I like because it's this nice, soft blue-gray color and it doesn't interfere visually with anything that I'm doing on my painting, right? And we just want this to dry. So I'm just going to fan it a little bit just so that, or blow on it so that it does dry, because one thing you don't want to do is work on your painting with any wet masking fluid. So just go ahead and make sure you kind of get it to be nice and dry. Oh, and I got a drip there. Got it. I'm totally not going to worry about anything. I never do. Because we're going to be lifting the masking before we ever, finish the painting. So I'm under the feeling that I'd rather not wait until the last thing to lift my masking because there may be more that I want to do. And depending on how detailed your masking is and how it goes on. You know, when you're doing areas like this, I don't think you could really go wrong with splatter. But when we're doing masking to really save some whites, what you want to be sure is that you see it before the painting, before you think that, oh, the painting's done and now I'm lifting the masking. You may actually need a little bit of work in there. So again, just make sure your paint, your dry, it's very dry before we go to the next step, which is going to be, and I still see, you could tap it, and if it lifts up, it's just going to be still a little too wet. You can also get a hair dryer. So to speed this up, I'm going to use my hair dryer, and I'll be right back. You may want to do the same. So I don't normally think that I would usually put masking fluid on beforehand and let it dry naturally. I don't recommend using a hair dryer because it might just make it adhere too much to the paper, but we're going to be lifting it in a very short time, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, the next step we're going to do is take your brush, and in your clean water, what I want to do is just sort of lightly add some sky into our, just wet it a little bit. And you can actually, I'm actually going to go into some of the buildings and just sort of have them come down. I'm leaving like little whites, but not a whole lot. And after you do that, I'm going to have a few brushes ready. I'm going to have a number 10, and this is my number 20. And I'm just going to get some moon glow. And a lot of what we do today is going to be allowing the moon glow to do its job for us, which really is giving us a chance to, I'm just going to move it into the camera a little bit so you could see. I'm just going in with my brush and just activating it with a little bit of water. And now I'm going to be, I'm holding my paper on an angle and I'm letting it drip down. And what I want to do is just let it drip down on its own into the water that we put on there. Did somebody have a question?
I do, Joan. You mentioned, I ordered moon glow, it did not come yet. What
Okay, so other colors that you could use, do you have like a cerulean? Do you have cerulean?
Sure.
Okay, I would use cerulean, and I would use, do you have a pink?
Absolutely.
Or a violet, a yellowy violet?
Yes.
I'm sorry, a pinky violet. I would use those two colors, and you could sort of mix them and have that work for you. So that's what I would use instead. Okay, so if I were to mix this, I would take my cerulean, and I would take my a pinky violet, and I would just loosely, well, this is my messy palette, but ignore that. I would have cleaned it for you, but just take a little bit of blue and a little bit of your violet and just sort of mix them together. And you're going to get sort of the same effect of the moon glow. And you'll see, I can actually put this on here and you really won't even see the difference. It's the same kind of two colors. And in fact, if you wanted to go in and just drop in some of those other colors, you certainly could. I'm sort of stopping at the horizon line a little bit. And I sort of gave you a nice horizon line there. And I just have some little sparky whites going on that just really tell me that they are, just, I don't know, sky holes or something. And if you wanted to go in and really make this drippy, you could go in and just drip a little bit more in and just let it travel down. Okay, I'm letting it travel through water and through gravity. Okay, you could tilt it back up and then you could tilt it back down again. So you want to watch the bottom of what's happening as well as your top. So just play with the gravity of this a little bit. And to me, that's just kind of adding to you know, intensity of the storm or whatever's going on outside. That's pretty much what was going on yesterday. And don't worry about any of the buildings just yet. Okay. And if you want to just, you know, have a little bit kind of come into the bottom part, you certainly can. That's a nice thing to do. And I'm sort of getting this atmospheric thing. So the moon glow does break up into blues and pinks. That's why using those two colors really work. And if you want to activate it even a little bit more, try a little bit of salt. And just sprinkling. This is just a little bit of table salt. And it does crystallize and really give you some beautiful effects. So now we have basically 3 effects in a couple of minutes. We have the granulation of the color. We have the white speckles of the masking fluid that we put on. And we're going to get some nice crystallization from the salt. And I'm still kind of moving a little bit here, and I'm just letting it go where it wants to go. I'm not really controlling any of that at all. Because basically my goal with this painting is to pretty much do it in one color. If I were to add any other colors, I might add a little bit of glow to the lamps. I'm a lamppost nut. I go into towns and I just love looking at a town's the personality of their lampposts. I think it's just such a beautiful thing. And so that little bit of glow, in fact, this may be a very nice time to add that glow. So that's really one of the other colors that I was thinking of using, which was a yellow. And if you have either Indian yellow or Quin gold, and you have those little lampposts, just drop it in, just let it absolutely just move. I just dotted it, really is all I did, just so that it moves. I'm going to go closer so you could see this. Okay, it's not tight at all. It's just all wet into wet down here, but because of the wet into wet, it'll give me really beautiful spread. And that I think is kind of cool. Again, I'm thinking of these lampposts lit up with this weather going on outside, and it is and it's glowing into the atmosphere. And I'm just sort of watching. I sort of have this sort of stopped right here. If you could see that, like, I'm really not going to worry about it because we're going to be building all of the buildings even darker than our sky is now. And if you did this right, you should see some pink, some blue, and some violet coming through on your paper. Now, I will tell you this, that if we were to take this color and we were to I'll do just a quick little demo here. If we took this color and just painted with it, okay, just moved it around and painted, you probably wouldn't see this granulation and this breaking into colors. But again, I'm going to tilt this and I'm going to add water to the bottom here and just lightly touch it and let it flow. You see how that's just flowing into where I just tapped it with a little bit of water. What will happen is as this color is breaking, as it's moving into the water, it actually does break into these other colors. So to me, this is the perfect opportunity to let the paint do the work for you. You know, as artists, we always think we have to do all the work, and but really with watercolors, I look at it like I just have to let it be a watercolor. And there are certain colors that just give us the most exquisite things happening. And actually, I'm starting to see this all break apart. And the way, I'll just show you, while this is drying, I'll just show you what if I want it to be a little darker, what I'll do is I'll just charge up the top. Notice I'm not carrying it down. I'm not moving it down with my brush. I'm just putting the color on the top and I'm letting it travel down. And that little bit of patience really does magical things for our paintings. It's just one of the most beautiful things, I think, along with drips and splatters and everything else that watercolor gives us. This is just exquisite. And I could tilt it back and I could add a little bit of water on the other side. You could sort of see the sheen of the water. I could tap it a little bit of water with my brush on the other side, let it go back in and get some of that color and then come down again. And you could turn it sideways. And this is such a great color to explore what watercolors will do. And when you start understanding that this is really such a wonderful aspect of watercolors, and the thought of letting it be a watercolor and letting it do the work for that, for you. Okay, so that's where I'm at. And what I'm going to do now, the paper is probably still a little damp, but what I'm going to do now is I've got my smaller brush. I have a number 10 brush. Okay. And what I'm going to do, and I know it's still wet, but I don't mind the softness of it. I'm going to start adding some of the architecture. So here's that steeple, right? So I'm just going to start building that a little bit more, same color. Now I'm using Moon Glow again. Okay. I'm using Moon Glow again, and I'm just following some of I'm not really in any lines, to tell you the truth, but I'm just sort of letting it trickle down. Trickle on down, trickle on down. And as you get into parts of these buildings, I gave you some nice white lines, horizontal and vertical lines that you could start paying attention to as you bring this color down. So my paper's tilted. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at my drawing, and I'm looking at my painting and the photograph, and I'm sort of allowing some of this to just trickle down, trickle down, trickle down. Just recharged up the top. And now I can go back in. Again, I just have a number 10 brush, and I'm just sort of giving it a little bit of suggestion of architecture, just a little bit. This is not going to be a tight painting at all. This is really going to be very, very loose. There's that nice white arch that's right there. I'm going to save that. It's not white anymore because we have the Moon Glow down there, but I'm just sort of suggesting some of this architecture, a little bit here and there, some of the vertical windows and some of the sills and the arches and the doorways. And when I'm doing my contour, I'm thinking of these things like, how do I want to paint this? How do I want to suggest this? How am I going to go about it? I'm thinking of all those things. I'm going to back out of this just to show you that very suggestively, very softly, I have a building. And partially, one of the things that why I wanted to paint this this way was to show you sort of how little you really need to do this, to suggest a photograph, to suggest to suggest a building. Now the people are actually going to get even darker. So you could just come up to them. You could leave a little bit of glow around them, and then you could come through their little bodies and, sort of come into, again, that suggestion. Guys, I see somebody trying to get in, so I'm going to. So I'm really just kind of through some of these whites and a little bit of architecture suggested. I made the marks specifically so that I could follow this kind of pattern down. And I'm still very much paying attention to letting the paint move for me. And now you could go into your other buildings, okay? Depending on if you wanted to work a little tighter, you could use maybe a little bit smaller brush. You could switch to something a tiny bit smaller if you wanted to. This is like a number 6, I guess, or 4. And just find some of these beautiful soft marks. If it dried, just hit it with a little spray if you'd like, or work a little drier. Maybe because this building is a little closer to me, maybe I want that to be a little bit more, not as you know, soft. And this is just a second wash. This is not done. So I don't want you to think that that I think these buildings are done. They're not, not by a long shot, but I do want to build them. Uh, and that's really what I'm looking to do here, is just build these darks and basically using one color. I love steeples also. I go into towns and I just love steeples that they have. There's just some things that are just so beautifully characteristic of these towns, right? When you get to the glow, let me go a little closer for you. When you get to the glow, you can softly just soften the moon glow around the glow of the lights if you wanted to, right? That's nice. And I'm just going to go ahead and start building some of those other buildings that are going on back here. Certainly those angles really matter because those are very much about the perspective that's coming into, into play here. So that's really important. And I think I added another steeple. Again, it's not a great photo because of how I got the photo, but we're having fun, so who cares? It gives us something really unique to paint, and that's really what it was all about for me. I don't know if I'm only the only crazy lady that does that, but I'm always looking on TV for things that interest me that I might want to paint because they really do have such beautiful lighting. There's such beautiful lighting around, so doesn't get better than that. They have location scouts and that are doing all kinds of looking for the best locations, and that's they did all the work for us. So we just have to see it and recognize it, and it's like going out with your camera. Again, I think I added a whole bunch of more street lanterns. So I'm just softly going around them so the glow sort of remains there. It's not a hard line. It's all very soft. Everything right now is just very wet into wet, very soft. Now, that umbrella, I'm going around the umbrella for sure. It's almost as if snow has accumulated on the top of that umbrella. And that is pretty much one of our, big center of interest here. This is still damp on this side, so it's going to go very soft. But as I go further back, you're not going to see as much. So I'm definitely going to pay a little closer attention to that, okay? That this gets a little softer. But also, I know that I want to go a little darker with these buildings more in the foreground. So I sort of know that going in. So again, the little glow around the lampposts. And as it goes further back, you need less and less to say that's a building there. And that's why my marks got less and less, because we didn't need it, right? We didn't need it. And then when you get to the other side, it's more like there's a gazebo there and there's some trees. We're going to do that next. There's sort of like street stuff here. So I just sort of softly am suggesting some, I don't know what it is. And you don't have to know what it is. You just have to say, there's something going on here. So I'm just dappling my brush a little bit and giving something going on back here. I don't know what it is. And so that's just letting now that color move back up into the painting in the other direction. got some nice, I got really nice granulation with my, my salt. It came out, I don't know if you could see this clearly, but my salt pushed aside the moon glow and gave me blue. It's so cool. I love that. Let me go a little, I am close. Okay, I'm close for you. Now, when it comes to the trees, it's very soft. We're not painting trees. We're just going to paint some limbs and just a really nice indication that there's a, not a building here. It's different texture. So I'm just sort of scumbling my brush a little bit. I'm going to feather some of it out so it's nice and soft, right? And I'm just giving it a different texture. I always like having my rigger ready because I never really know when I'm going to have it, to do. I think it's just going to be really nice to do some, carry this dark down into some of the tree limbs, some of the tree trunks. And don't line them up like soldiers, just have them go in different directions. A little bit of the gazebo there. A little something going on. Again, you don't have to, I guess that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this painting was because it's just so suggestive and I don't have to say everything about it. I just have to give enough about it that you sort of get an idea that this is a town. And if I stopped right now, let me just back out of it. If I stop right now, you'd know exactly this is a snow scene and there's people walking, which we didn't do yet. We're going to, but we're gonna go further, right? We're gonna go further with this. But I guess for me, it's asking the question, well, how much do I want to let the viewer see what's going on and fill in some of the blanks themselves? And how much do I want to give them, right? So in this particular painting, I'm looking to give them a whole lot less. I really want it to just look like a blizzard, like a washout. And I was thinking that when I took the photo, I really, really was. I didn't know who I was going to be doing this with, but it ended up being you guys. So I hope you like this idea of just this one color that just breaks into so many great colors. And I'm just giving the tree a tiny, this is all really wet here, and I'm just giving it a little bit of texture just to say there's a tree, there's a whole pile of trees there. I'm not going in and painting trees. I'm just sort of giving, I'll go a little closer. I'm just giving you a little suggestion of trees, trunks. This is that little head that's there, the little person. I want to talk about people for a second. When you're painting people, the one of the great tricks about doing people is making the head at least half as small as you think it needs to be. When heads are too big, they look either like kids or like aliens. It's kind of funny. You don't need really all that much to say it's a person. So that, so we're going to be talking about that. Okay. Exactly what is involved to make it a person. And it's a lot less than you think it is. It really is. The bodies are small. I mean, the heads are much smaller than you would think, and it just reads better. So how's everybody doing? While this is still a little damp and I still want it to be soft, and you could do this at any time, I'm going to go into that steeple, which I just love that. And I'm going to recharge up a little bit more color. So this is sort of my third round of color that's going on here. So it was the first one, the buildings were the second. Now I just want to go in and I want to just build it even a little bit more. And it's still damp and wet. And I normally don't work this wet and this damp, but because I want things to go way out of focus and really, really soft, it's okay if you work that way. If you have to, just take your sprayer and just mist it down a little bit. Okay, just mist it down if you have to. Mine's still pretty damp, so I'm still getting pretty sharp little lines. So soft lines, I should say. They're not that sharp. And what I'm doing now is I'm just building, and I'm looking at my photo, and I'm just giving it a little bit more detail. Maybe I have it on my paper that I drew. Maybe I can't see it anymore. This is where you start relying on what you see on your photo, your source.
Jan, what color are you using to give that some detail?
More moon glow.
Okay.
I am using moon glow the whole way here. So if you don't have the moon glow, obviously you're going to be mixing your violet, your pinky violet, and your cerulean a little bit more. But this is literally one color. We have used one color with the exception of that little bit of glow. This is one color. So now I'm using my rigger or a liner brush, right? And what I'm doing is I'm just going back in and giving it even more details. So that's all I'm doing. It literally, I have not changed colors at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just needed to do this painting this way. It just said, paint me this way. So now I'm just make sure you stay on your perspective that I gave you in the drawing, right? So you want to stay on that. And you want to be able to, just sort of, now when you're doing windows, all you really have to do is just give it a vertical. That's all you have to do. That'll say window, especially window on an angle. You don't have to paint the window. You just have to give it the angle that it's going on, and it'll say exactly what you need it to. And now you could go in and listen, find all that beautiful little detail that you love, that we all love to do. Go in and totally make yourself happy. Now, I happen to be a steeple person, so I know the photograph cut it off, but I'm going to paint one in because I just love them. And so I kind of made it up a little bit. And I feel like that's a good, let me back out of it. I feel like that's a good entrance way to come in and then go into the people and the buildings and, whatever's going on. So now I'm just going back in. Oh, I just saw there's a street light there. Oh, that's good. Does everybody see that, that goose lamp that's here? That's really good. We're going to go back in and add that. Oh my goodness, that's perfect. I just saw it. Sort of comes down. It's like right around here. It starts and it goes up and over. Does anybody see that? It's like right. I'll show you. It's right here, guys. I didn't see it. Here's the gooseneck there, and there it comes down, and there's the base right there. So I really want to go in and do that. That'll be one of the last things we do. I didn't even see it. Oh my goodness. More moon glow, moon glow, moon glow, moon glow. I'm using my rigger, my liner, to just get some of these nice darks and to get the nice perspective. And you could see that just that little bit starts building it so nicely. Maybe that nice part of the window right here. And that shadow across the top. It's wet, so it's really still very soft. And guess what, guys? We could go back in and we could even go darker later on if we want to. This does not have to end here. So be free with it. Don't get tight on, don't get too tight on me. keep it loose. And that's, that's the fun part about working sort of wet this way, is it really does keep you kind of, working that way, not going into too many details. But I am finding really beautiful things here that I really want to have in my painting. If you don't like something, just wash it out. Just kind of carry it with a little bit of water, and it'll just melt right away into your painting. It'll just go right away. Now, even though I'm adding these windows, those two start and end on an angle. That's really important. Oh, and I just loved this arch. It's funny, I'm just going to talk about this for a second because it's so meaningful to me, is why I paint what I do. And sometimes I add the things that I love, like the street lamps. I love street lamps, so I'll add them in. There are arches. There's such little things that make me want to paint and bring me into sit down, and sometimes I know right off the bat what they are, and sometimes sometimes I have to paint it to discover what it is. I don't know what it is, but I have to discover it. And in the painting process, I start seeing the things like, oh yeah, I really want to paint that, and I really want to get this, and I really want to portray that, and I really want to add this, and then I also edit out and I say, well, yeah, I'm not so interested in painting that, so I'm just going to not paint that. I choose what it is that brings me into wanting to paint something. And I don't feel that just because it's there, I have to paint it. So I'm, sort of very, um, I just eliminate the things that don't turn me on. And I am the artist. Nobody is going to say, wait a minute, that building, that isn't there or whatever. This is your interpretation of this. This is your expression of this. Nobody's, I don't even know where the town is. Who the heck knows it? And that's not really even important. But even if you did know the town, it's what you bring to it that matters. It's how you depict it that matters. And I want to just build these a little bit more. I'm not going to build these back ones all that much. I'm spending a little time on this one with the steeple because I just think it's such a beautiful building. And I want that, I definitely want that to be, sort of foremost in front of everything. But as it goes back into space, right, it's just that level of detail is not going to be, that intensity of color is not going to be as important. That amount of detail is not going to be important. None of that is going to matter because it's just going to be lost. And the story is going to be the people and the lampposts and the snow and the salt and all the things that we did early on. I added another little steeple here just because I love them so. But it's a little softer. It's not as pronounced as that one because it's sort of caught in the snow. And I'm just making myself really happy with some light little details as I'm going back into space here. And as I head back, the further back I go, the less I need. And in fact, a nice way to even suggest a building is maybe to just paint the top a little bit, right? That roof line, and feather it down and don't even finish it. Just let it melt down. And who needs the rest of the building? We don't. I don't. I don't need it. You don't need it unless you want it. it gets a little too dark, which I think those marks might have gone a little too dark, I'm just going to take a little bit of a tissue and just tap it a little bit just so that it doesn't go too dark for me. And then when you guys are ready, I want to start doing some of these little people with you. I think the littlest amount of detail. Let me go a little closer for you guys. So I'm just doing sort of this base here a little bit, just, you know, where they're walking and they're going to, I'm just feathering it up. So when I feather up, I just take my brush and I just give it water so it just travels on up for me without me having to push it with my brush. Sort of has some splatter there. I like it. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. To me, it's just some of the most beautiful things about watercolors is just these unexpected, if you could find a way to embrace what happens with watercolor, I think you would be happier with the results. You know, we totally could control watercolor, right? With, very dry brush marks and, doing every little detail. But to me, I feel like I'd be missing out on some of the most beautiful aspects of watercolor, which really is what does it do on its own for me without me doing it. And I love those unexpected surprises that come in and say, well, I don't know what it's going to do, but I'm willing to let it go to experience what's going to happen with it. I'm really willing to do that. So I sort of didn't do any of the people yet. I want to do that together. And that's where I'm at so far right here. Okay. Do I consider it me done with all of this? No, but the truth is that this is just another piece of my way of looking at it, is that I don't know how much I want to finish it until I start working some of the people, the little lady with the umbrella, the lampposts. I don't want to overwork these buildings until I build some of that other stuff there. So I just want to wait. I say, let's go in and do some of the people. I'm going to zoom in because they're pretty tiny, and I'm going to focus this right where it needs to be, right there. Okay. And I'm going to use a pretty small brush because these people are pretty tiny. They really are. I'm only working like 1/8 of a sheet. I'm not working on a very big sheet right now. It is 300 Arches hot press, which is my favorite to paint with. And let me see if I could zoom in a little bit more for you guys. And okay, there's my people. So what you want to do is, before you do the head last, and get to the shoulders. And now you could see I'm using way more color, same color. I'm only using Moon Glow here. Get the shape of their arms. Maybe they're carrying something. Just give a little bit of shape to their coat. You don't need much, because they're wearing coats, so everybody thinks kind of boxy. And just give a little bit of hint at one. Sometimes I see people do one leg, sometimes they add two if you want them walking. You definitely want to like give a little hint of that. And add the head last. The head is not round, it is rectangular. It's a rectangle. And just refine whatever little shape they're carrying, if they have a bag or whatever, whatever that is. And the other thing that I would do is I would just take that foot and just anchor it down into the snow a little bit. Just so it's not like a stub, okay? Just a really suggestive, that's a little bit too much water, but that idea that their leg is just sort of melted. So make the head last. If you start with the head, you're going to just make it too big. Again, I just got Moon Glow. That's all I have here. Maybe their head there is to the wind a little bit. Maybe they're trying to. And give them a little bit of a suggested, walking, whatever that is. You could see, some of the gestures that are going on in the photograph a little bit. And build the head later. And I'm doing something that I always tell people don't do. I'm kind of spacing them out equal distance. You don't want to do that. You do want to have them not all perfectly separated from each other. So maybe I'll give him a little bit of a bag to just bring it a little closer. These two people here, I sort of have them clumped together. And now, hopefully, you're starting to see that this is more of the conversation than all that architecture that maybe you were worried about on top. That's why I'm going to keep you just kind of moving forward with this. Of course, the main event is really the woman right here. And so I'm going to start with the umbrella. It has a really pretty little shape to it. It's not just like a oval or upside down kind of thing. It's got a good shape to it. So you want to get that. That's really kind of charming in a way. It has a little bit of a white edge to it, which is, I don't know if it's ruffly or whatever it is, but I kind of like it. That really attracted me. Really, I went through frame by frame till I got her just in the right spot. I really did. A little crazy that way. But anything for a photo, anything for the painting, anything for the sake of art, right? That's the way I look at it. Fortunately, my husband has gotten used to it. So again, a lot more color here on my brush. It's not watery at all. And here for the first time, I'm sort of pushing the color around on my brush. Before I let it go, now I'm sort of, really pushing it. I really am, because I want it to be very solid looking. So I'm working the paint very differently right now. And of course, this any color, you could work it this way. Any color at all, you could just put it on and completely control it. The idea behind the rest of the painting was really to be lack of control. And that's really where, I was really wanted to, take you off on a different way of thinking about this painting. And it probably isn't any way that you would think of doing it, but to me, this just had to go this way. There was just no other way for me that I wanted to address this. All right, so let me back out and I'll show you where I'm at. So I kind of have my people in. So now you start seeing, well, gee, how much do I need on the top? I'm not really sure that I need all that much. And there's a little person over here. I think I'll put 2 people over here. Again, start with the body first. And, you know, the legs or one leg. I mean, I've seen it done both times, you know, with one leg, sometimes 2 legs if you really want to show them moving. And if you do children, right, you want their heads to be larger. They're not just shorter, but their heads are larger to their bodies in relationship. So that's really, you know, sort of good to know. That's why when you do people, you don't want them to look too big, of their heads too big. I'm just going to carry that down a little bit. And I definitely want to do the lampposts. That's going to be, and that one light that is there. I definitely want to get that in there. Just going to evaluate if this area down here is dark enough. And I'm thinking I might want to go a little darker right in here, like on either side of this main building here. And the reason why I'm thinking that is so that I could just push the eye there a little bit more. So the way that I do that is I have to turn my paper sort of on its side. So I apologize, but here's what I'm going to do is add a little bit of color right to these edges, right into those edges right there. Then what I do is I take my brush, I take the paint off and I just wipe it on my drawing mat here. And I just give it a little bit of water and I let it feather up on its own. Okay. It's a nice, quick little technique for getting an area to be a little bit darker and not having a hard line when you get to the top of it because it's feathering into your water that you had on your brush. So that's a nice little technique. I do that all the time. And maybe we want just a little bit more architecture sort of on the bottom because those storefronts or whatever that are on the bottom, you know, evaluate. Yours may be darker than mine. I'm just seeing that I feel it could be a little darker than I have it. So, you know, I'm just going in and doing some of that right now. And again, it's a little bit darker along the bottom part. And I feather that up so that I don't have to worry about how far up I take it or whatever. And then when it's wet, what you could do is the charging idea. And that is just going in and dropping in a little bit more of that color into spots so that it just softens and gives you some other architectural sort of suggestions. We don't have to paint doorways, right? We don't have to paint any of that. It's all so suggestive. And just making sure that I have nice, soft things kind of happening there. And yeah, kind of like the way everything is sort of working around itself here a little bit. And I do want to pencil in that that nice big when it's sort of drier, this area here, right? I think it'll be really nice to just get that the arch of that street light, but I want to position it. I may want to have it come over here into that open space as opposed to staying within the buildings that are here, right? So I'm thinking about actually moving it over a little bit because we can. right? That's sort of, again, just the angle that we caught it at, but I think it could be moved over a little bit. I'm just seeing if some of my architecture needs to be a little darker, just going in and fussing with it a little bit. And I'm keeping it so soft. It's just really just a fun little opportunity to add some details to it. And of course, the darker we go here, that's going to make our splatter look that much better, right? Okay. I think I'm ready to add some street lights. So I'm going to go a little closer in for you guys. I'm going to work on the side because if I take my rigger, I want to be able to pull it from the base of the lamp up. So if this is the base here, I want to be able to take it and pull it up to the pole right there. It's sort of getting a little stuck because I have a lot of masking on, but I don't, it's fine. That's a little wet there, so that's not going to work. But I think I think that's all wet over here because I was just working there. So I'll work these back ones a little bit. And all you have to do is just give a little bit, again, this is just so little, a little base, and a little top. They should get a little smaller as they go back, of course. And maybe some of the sides. And it says street light really quickly. I think I could go and do some of these tops. The bottom is damp, so I can't really do those there. So you got to time your watercolor, right? Where it's wet, where it's damp, and where it's dry. This is a dry mark. Where before I wanted to be sure that I was getting a very soft mark. This is, I don't care. This is really where I want to go in and make sure I have a really a very sharp mark. Okay. I'm really happy with everything that's sort of going on here. I feel I got good splatter with the masking. I got nice salt effect going on. I got good granulation going on with my my color, my moon glow. And what is left is I'm gonna just pencil in that where I'm gonna put that big arch lamp, street lamp. It's different than a street lamp. Those are like lamp posts. So this big archy thing, I definitely want to find a good spot for that. And so I'm thinking it might be really nice if it, let's see, comes from here, perhaps up here, and then comes over right there, kind of outside the building. So it's a little bit in a different spot. And that's that lamp area there. So I'm going to have it go right from here. So here's where I am right here, guys. Let me back out. So I'm going to have my street light come up from here, just a little over, and then it's going to arch into here. And that is going to be the next thing I'm going to do. And I do have to work upside down to do this. So I'm going to start, I said here. Okay. So here I go. I'm going to go there. Okay. So here it is here. This is my rigger. A lot of color. It's got a pretty hefty base on it, so I want to make sure the base looks pretty dark. And I'm going to come up. I don't want to have to go back into this, so I'm making sure I just have enough paint on my brush so I don't have to come back up into it. And it's not straight, it's not perfect, and I don't care. But the arch I think is really important. So I'm just going to build this arch right around there. And then sort of where the lamp is right there. And I think that adds a nice touch to it. And I'm just going to soften a little bit as this comes into, let me go a little closer for you guys. So here I'm just softening this lamp coming down, and here, that goose lamp, goose. Probably has some ornate stuff on it, you know, that I'm not seeing, but that's okay. This is really going to do the trick. I like it. We could probably add another one further down. Ooh, what do you think of that? How about like another one right back here? I think that would look really, really good. Okay, I'm going to pencil it in again. And I think like if it were right here, that'd be great. Oh yeah, okay. This should be obviously way thinner, way smaller, maybe even a little bit lighter. Yeah. It kind of adds to the perspective. And it, you know, I'm embellishing a little bit, but you know, there's not a lot going on in this painting. So we want to be able to, I mean, there is and there isn't, you know, there's a lot going on, but you know, when we lift the masking, I want to see if we want to splatter a little bit and do things like that. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. This is all done. I'm just going to start lifting off my salt and my masking fluid. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, some of you may, is that if you don't have, this is a rubber cement pickup. It's just this thing that lifts the liquid rubber cement, which is what masking fluid is. Or in big areas, I've actually found that saran wrap works really, really well. So I'm just gonna rub this along the dry areas of my painting. I don't want to work where it's wet, obviously, because well, that's what's going on. But let's see. Yeah, I got good stuff going on. I got a little weird thing there. I'll fix that. I'll show you guys how to fix areas that you're not happy with. But other than that, I should have lifted it before. If you know, when you put your masking fluid down, if you're not happy with how it went down, you could always lift it and reapply it. It's all works perfectly well that way. Of course, your paper must be super dry to do this. You don't want to work if it's damp, or certainly not if it's wet, but if it's damp, you don't want to do this either. So I have salt, I got Moon Glow granulation, I've got the masking fluid, which gave me just great little spots, unexpected. And what a perfectly snowy little town painting. Just all my masking fluid coming off there. And now I get to look in and say, well, is there anything else that I sort of wanted to do? I do want to fix this one little area. I'll just go a little closer. My masking fluid just kind of went a little weird. If you don't want to disturb things too much, what you could do is just take like kind of a damp little brush and just lightly, with a little bit of color, just sort of fill it in a little bit. You don't want it to be too wet. You just want it to be not that, you just want to move the color a little bit so it's not so stark of a little spot. And that's, you could correct all this stuff. That's all good, I guarantee you nobody's going to be looking at that part of the painting. And I left it on there just so that I could show you how I sort of go about doing that and just filling it in a little bit. It takes a little bit more effort to do it, but just dropping a little color in and then feathering it out to either side a little bit. And who is to the wiser when I back out of it, boom, gone, right? And there's some other things that we could do that would be really fun as well, okay?
Jan, could you show us how to anchor the star of the show? Do we go down, to the right, to the left,
Yeah.
or straight down? The girl with the umbrella.
Oh, here, yeah. What I did was I did just melt her down a little bit into the snow.
Okay.
So the way that you do that is you just take your brush, and if you have, let me just get a little smaller brush here. And if you have, like, if you add a little bit of color to her foot, right? And then you just carry it down, no paint, no water, just let it melt down into the snow a little bit, and it'll anchor it right down. So just that little bit. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now I'm not done. I want more splatter. I love splatter. Now, it would be fun to just do more moon glow. Okay, which I could do. I could definitely splatter some moon glow. But what if we splattered the two colors that I forgot who it was. Was it Libby that didn't have the two colors? What if you splatter a little bit of blue, cerulean, right? Or a little bit of your violet, pink color, just to liven it up a little bit. And that just brings it more to life. And I'm really happy with what I see. I feel that I achieved what I wanted to with this painting. Okay. The only thing I'm thinking is maybe these two people here could be a little darker, and that's an easy breezy thing to do. I just have to go in and just make their bodies a little darker, their heads. Just a skosh. They just got a little washed out, but that's an easy breezy thing to do, right? And some of the street lights, maybe just some of those edges, the little sections that they have, right? Those little sections, that's kind of nice. I just have such an infatuation for these things. I don't know what it is, but it just gives me such fun little details, to have. I sort of have a mark right here. I'll show it to you a little closer. There's something going on right there. All I have to do is take some clean water with my scrubber brush, just lightly tap it, or a Mr. Clean Magic eraser. That works too. And it's gone. Gonzo, no more. But it might be fun to splatter a little bit more in the foreground here and not keep it all on the top, right? That could be fun. And it's good to test, make sure you don't have too much paint or too much water on your brush, okay? Just so you could just tap, 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 tap. Now, if you end up with spots that you're not happy with, I'll just show you. Easy to fix. So let's say, I don't like this spot here, okay? Just take your damp brush and just make it go away. Just lift it, just make it go away. But I'm kind of happy with them. I like them. It almost feels like the camera lens is kind of closer to me. And that's a little pink. And maybe I want to add a little bit of white to the lamppost there. So if you have a white, a watercolor white, that's a little softer. If you have an acrylic, I know I brought one down. This is a heavy body acrylic. This is really, really heavy duty stuff. It'll be very opaque if I use this, unless I really water it down. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white right there. And that's all I really feel I need. And as I look at this, I just feel like I just did what I wanted to do with it. It's all suggestive, but you know exactly what it is, which was what I loved about the, this painting. And I mean, we could have some more fun with it if you wanted to. Like what, Jan? What would you say? Okay, let's say we wanted to just give a little bit of glow to some of these windows, right? Easy to do. Just take your nice small brush. Take, I don't know, maybe a glowy pink, maybe a little bit of pink with a little bit of yellow. It kind of give you like an orangey color, right? And maybe hit some of these with a little bit of color. Oh, that's nice. That could be fun. Just bringing in a little bit more color into some of these areas here. Like there's little, things going on underneath, maybe back there a little bit. Just giving it a little bit of other color. It's very monotone, which is really my intention totally to do it this way. All kinds of things that we could do. And even at this stage, even though we lifted the masking and did all of that, you could still go in and find more details. So guys, this was great. It just falls into my philosophy of letting the paint do the work for you. And if we could just get out of its way and not push it with our brush, you really can find some beautiful, beautiful granulation and wonderful marks that the paint will give to you. It's all there for the taking. And this is, it's just one of the many reasons I love watercolor so much. And I've learned to just let it be a watercolor and use the two magic ingredients, gravity and water, to help you move it. That's why I work flat and I tilt it when I want to. And I tilt in the direction that I want it to. So practice up, and thanks for coming in, and I'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye now.